Hi everyone, Jay here from Jade Productions, back with another video, and today we are looking at this brand new preview from Games Workshop on Warhammer Community, and we're going to be talking about what they've shown off here regarding the Orruk Warclans, and specifically the new rules for the Kruleboyz. So, haven't covered this straight away, I'm just a day late on this because I was asleep for once at the time when it dropped, so going through this, we're just going to take a look at what they've shown off and discuss it a little bit and see what we think about it. And what we think it means for the army, and just general thoughts, tactics, strategy, that kind of thing. So, first things first, of course, they launched this article talking about a bunch of stuff about, you know, the Orruk Warclans in general, the Orruk Warclans when it comes to their book. And previously, for those of you who don't know, the Orruk Warclans was a book that unified both the Ironjawz, the hard-hitting armored Black Orcs of fantasy, and with that are now the elite, heavily armored, very gawkish, brutal but cunning orcs that are excellent elite killers with heavy armor that are quite durable and surprisingly fast and very, very aggressive and very, very killy. And then you have the Bone Splitters, which are feral orcs, which had an emphasis on speed and magic and a number of ways to buff themselves, and were quite mobile and were excellent at monster hunting and could throw dice like nobody's business. Just classic orc style, drowning them in dice. So that's where we go. And previously, the Bone Splitters were the primary source of shooting. And then, of course, in the Orruk Warclans book, there was a third allegiance, which is now the fourth allegiance, with the Kruleboyz added in, where you could put any unit from any of them together and into the Great Waaagh, which you would generate points based on characters and abilities and what you did and who was your general, and you would generate these Waaagh points, which would slowly unlock more and more tiers of abilities until you reached your Great Waaagh, where you're at your strongest. But you could risk it all in exchange for sacrificing all your points and everything you'd earned so far to get a massive damage boost for a single round. So there was that. And on top of that, each faction, while you could use them in the Great Waaagh, you certainly lost most of the allegiance abilities of the specific different Orruk Warclan types. In addition, each of these Warclan types, so the Ironjawz and the Bone Splitters, each had their own sub-factions which you could pick from. And so this video delves into a little bit of this and looks specifically at the Kruleboyz. So let's dive straight in. First, I just want to talk about this, the bird. I think the bird's amazing. I haven't talked about this anywhere else but on my Discord. But I love the bird, but I think it's really way too busy up top with the howdah thing. I actually kind of hate that. I hope I can model mine to not have that, because that's super busy, but the rest of the bird itself is fantastic. I kind of want two of them. One is the character and one is not, and I don't particularly like named characters. So, starting with the Kruleboyz, it's really cool art, I really like that. We're looking through them, and of course they're talking just a little bit most things we already know about there, and then we reach this, our first subfaction, which I actually kind of find this funny, because this is pretty much how I'm painting my orcs here, with the yellow and the purple, though I'm using a bit more black instead of like full-on purple. I'm using black with purple highlights and the yellow. So yeah, I think this is nice, and so I'm excited that because this color scheme corresponds to the Big Yellers. So the Big Yellers are the first of the sub-factions. And there's 3 sub-factions in total, and they've shown off 2 here in this article. The Big Yellers is the first one. So they talk about the Big Yellers being the range specialist. The crossbows of the Big Yellers are just a bit better than those of the other Kruleboyz, and not that the rival Warclans would ever admit it. So you add 3 inches to the range characteristic of missile weapons used by friendly Big Yellow Orruks. In addition, in the first battle round, each time a friendly Big Yellow Orruk unit shoots, you can reroll one of the hit rolls or for one of the attacks made by that unit. Now, looking at that, that's pretty good, because you look at the first section is the 3 inches to their range. So your man-skewer crossbows, geez, tongue-tied here. They have 2 shot profiles, as most people are aware by now. So you have the hasty shot, which is the shot you can fire when you move, or you have the aimed shot, which you can only fire if you don't move. And you have no choice in which one you have to use. You literally, according to their war scroll currently, you must use based on whether or not you have moved or not. So the aim shot is 24 inches, and this takes it up to 25, 26, 27 inches. That's a pretty good range. 27 inches is pretty good range, and that's a permanent thing. And it has 1 shot. So that reroll is nice. Problem is, if people see, this is the thing of the new battle map size versus the regular battle map size. I think the minimum size is really, really toxic for Warhammer in general, for both 40k and Age of Sigmar. It gives you no room to move. I like a little bit more in 40k, the minimum size boards, but suffice to say, this would, in, the smaller size boards, help put you a little bit further in range in that first battle round, and potentially, depending on how your opponent deploys, you could actually take advantage of this second part of the trait. However, that is where I actually kind of hate the new one, because shooting is pretty powerful and ranges are pretty short. So the issue I have is that there's no way to really defend against shooting on the smaller maps. The bigger maps have room for you to actually maneuver, and it's quite important where you put your guys around, and you can deploy a bit more defensively, but it also at the same time counteracts this trait, specifically the second part of it. The reroll 1 hit roll for one of the attacks made by units, and that doesn't benefit the man-skewer bolt boys whatsoever, really. I think, however, this will benefit the big ballistas we've seen, because we can probably expect a lot more range on those, and we want those ballistas to hit, because you want to do those that artillery in the first round to try and soften up the enemy. But I'll save the discussion on the minimum recommended versus the traditional size. Suffice to say, I think the traditional size is better for gameplay, but at the same time, this isn't really good for the traditional size of game boards. Suffice to say, though, the 3 inches to the range is pretty good. Your 12-inch range is going up to 13, 14, 15-inch range, which is pretty nice for the 2-shot version from the hasty shot, which is not particularly bad. Extra range is never to be argued with. Speak to the Caradrons about that. A lot of their shots are just way too short-ranged, and they would kill for extra range. They would kill to be further away. And they're somewhat a little bit more squishy than the orcs. So, there is that. The next thing about these big yells that they talk about here is that they can take the Bolt Boys as battle line. And I think that is clearly, a winner. The Bolt Boys are fantastic, mostly because, for their currently listed points cost, the other boys that we have, the Gut Rippers, they're not, what I'd call, they're not my favorite battle line. I'd like to run a big unit of them with 30 boys. With the spears, never hand weapons because 1-inch reach, and they've got 32mm bases, and I can guarantee you they will be 1-inch reach because they're hand weapons. If not, there's some seriously foobarred design going on there that just breaks everything they've done before, and who knows what the fuck we're doing at that point, because Games Workshop will have lost the plot. So, the Bolt Boys' battle line, this one immediately sells me. I'm certainly very happy that I've actually painted my guys in a similar color scheme to the big yellows, because I think this is really good. The Bolt Boys, while you only get 3 of them in a squad, they are very killy for what they do. This is going to give them extra range, making them a little bit better. You've got the reroll 1 hit roll, so you've got that there. I think this is a very good thing for the what we know about the Kruleboyz. There's still a whole bunch more stuff to come, and we haven't seen the war scrolls for everything, but so far this one definitely impresses me. We go, oh yes, I like this. The Bolt Boys' battle line is very good because, battle line, anything that changes up your battle line gives you more options, more flexibility in how you build your list, and the Bolt Boys are very good, and this trait combos and synergizes with them very well, so I can understand why they've done that. I think it's a very good one, probably the best one that they show off. The other one they show off here is the skull bugs. So, skull bugs like they're bugs and being really, really gross. And the first time I read this, I had to read this twice before I understood it, and then I was kind of like, this is not so great. So, it has the potential to be okay, but I'm seeing here in the things that they're showing off, there's lots of ways to stack -1 to hit. Now, this would be amazing in 2nd edition. In 3rd edition, not so much because of the caps on minuses and pluses and that kind of thing. Kind of a bit shitty. You can't really, put those synergies together to make your guys scary, spooky, non-hittable orcs. But at the same time, what are you going to do? That's the nature of the game, and this one is just kind of unreliable because we see, like, the Kruleboyz, the Gut Rippers, have a way to give guys -1 to hit on a random roll, and then you have this ability here, which, Crawly Swarm. So, the Skull Bugs and their loathsome war beasts are magnets for all kinds of biting, wriggling, creepy crawlies. I love the idea of this, because I like swamp orcs. I like the general color scheme as well, but the ability itself. When an enemy unit is picked to fight, roll a dice if it is within 3 inches of any Skull Bugs unit. Affects all of them, that's fine. Add 2 to the roll if that enemy unit is within 3 inches of a friendly Skull Bugs monster. I'm suspecting you're going to have a lot of monsters in this army. They seem to have, most of their units that they've shown off that are coming to them seem to be monsters. On a roll of a 6+, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by that enemy unit in that phase. You need a 6+. It wouldn't be so bad if it was a 5+, because then you're looking at a 37% chance to get it, and then you're easily looking at a 70% chance to get it if it's a monster. Then it would be fine. But instead, you're looking at a 50% chance on a monster and a less than 20%, like a 16%, 15% chance on anything else. And suffice to say, this is only going to be good if you're bringing a monster-heavy list, and unless they actually change something and let you bring a monster as battle line, you probably never want to do that. But there is that possibility that they haven't talked about here that we don't specifically know. So I'm not willing to discount this ability yet, but base up, this one certainly appears to be terrible. It's certainly not my other thing, but like everything in Age of Sigmar, you can't really judge alone from these base abilities, mostly because there is everything to do with what are the relics, what is the warlord trait, or what is the general's trait, do they have a custom command ability, what are the other restrictions and perks of the sub-faction. So reserving judgment on each of these, because this one might have some amazing relics, but this one appears to be the sneaky one, this one appears to be the shooty one. So, there is that. And then we talk about this. So, ever the opportunists, the Kruleboyz also employ an impressive selection of underhanded tactics to get an edge, called dirty tricks. Noisy Racket caught our attention and shows how prolonged terror tactics can fatigue even the strongest enemies. So, the dirty tricks, from what I'm gathering here, is something that's part of your Legion's ability, kind of like the Caradron Code, that you select before the battle, in all likelihood, or at the start of the battle, and it gives you something to go on with and represents your prolonged sort of asymmetrical warfare, which I really like. I really like factions like that. I really wish my Eldar and 40k had stuff like that. This is the kind of armies I like. I like this sort of, the representing that this isn't just, let's go in here and just grind against each other. No. This is a battle. We've been working on you. We have tactics put together. We have a plan in mind. We gots to thinking, boys. So, and this one's pretty simple. You subtract 1 from wound rolls for attacks made by enemy units in the first battle round, and that's fantastic. There wasn't a lot of stuff in the previous edition that lowered wound rolls. There was a few stuff, and it was powerful. And it's only for the first battle round, so it's limited in how effective it's going to be. Anything that only lasts for 1 round is always going to be that crazy thing, and anything that only lasts for the first battle round is particularly going to be bad. The first battle round, this is going to be good, like, when you're on the defensive, you deploy forward, at the edge of your deployment zone, you're not deploying defensively, and you're waiting, basically, in the event of the turn initiative going to you, you can charge forward, get on those objectives, and then the enemy is forced to countercharge you, and they're going to have a harder time dislodging you. In the case where you're going second, It allows you to be a bit more defensive without, deploying defensively, and protects you a little bit from Alpha Strike armies who just charge across the board turn 1 and hit you and stab you right up in the face before you even get out of your deployment zone. So, there is that, and this serves as a little bit of protection. The fact that it is subtract 1 from wound rolls definitely makes it interesting, and we've seen here you have a lot of other ways to subtract from hit rolls, so I'm particularly liking this. I can't wait to see what other dirty tricks they have. This one, though, it's, it varies in its usefulness, but I like it. It's okay. Then we've got some other fantastic art, and we talk about, yes, there is 3 sub-factions. They do confirm that. So I suspect the other ones aren't going to change too much in terms of what they are, unlike 40k, which likes to change. But, you've got that 3 sub-factions for each one. So, then we talk about some other things. We start talking about mount traits here, and I love these things. I love everything that this army showed off. I just wish they had more actual generic units, and not just a bunch of characters, because, like, come on, there's only so many characters you can have in an army. Your army can't be made solely of characters and monsters. That just doesn't work. Well, depends who you're playing, but generally it doesn't work. So, we talk about some new traits. So, even better selection of mounts to bring to the table, and Battletome adds some hilarious and effective traits for your ride. And so, this new one is Smelly Un. So the horrible stench emanates from this creature, growing stronger the longer it lingers in one place. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons that target this model if it has not made a charge move in the same turn. So, again, another defensive thing. If you get bogged down in a combat, it's going to help you. So, like, if you charge in, you fail to clear the unit, you fail to do enough damage, and they countercharge you and they swamp in on you. Yep, that's going to help you in the preceding rounds, provided your monster lives long enough. At the same time, it's got that thing where you're on the defensive if you want them to bait the charge into you. We'll have to see whether or not their monsters particularly want that, but it is something that you want and can happen, because Age of Sigmar is still a game about knowing when to charge and when not to charge. So, baiting that charge, this is going to really help you survive that baiting charge. So, I like that. It's certainly interesting. I can't wait to see what mounts can actually take it. I'll be very curious to see if the Maw Crusher can take it, because they don't specify what can take it in here. But, Maw Crusher with Smelly Un would be kind of funny, since it's a cabbage. It's cabbage, guys. It's battle cabbage. Especially if you paint it green. It's the battle cabbage. I love that thing. It looks awesome. Super awesome, like, update of, like, a Wyvern sculpt. So, if you want to take Orruks from Kruleboyz, Ironjaws, and Bone Splitters, we have the Big Waaagh, which, I already talked about a little bit. Doesn't look like that's completely changed, but there is this. This is something different. So previously for the Big Waaagh, you had to take that allegiance ability. You're basically sacrificing all the other allegiance abilities. You don't have to give up your sub-factions battle traits either, according to this article. Each of the 3 retains their best abilities, because originally what happened was you had to essentially... the Big Waaagh table, as you gained points, basically gave you the best of both worlds of all of the 2 other sub-faction abilities of, the Bone Splitters and the Ironjaws, and you could get them both and work your way up. But in exchange for having to work your way up, you were stripped of them at the very beginning, so you had to work your way up. So there is that. So, and then they talk about it being the same, so various conditions like the War Chanter, boys getting stuck in, all this stuff sounds very familiar for anyone familiar with the Orruk Warclans 2.0 book. Doesn't sound like it's changing too much, and really that's kind of all that really needed to be done to balance Age of Sigmar 2.0. Some books needed to be better written and in a few ways, but suffice to say 2.0 was perfect. 3.0, it fucked with what was, already good, but hey, I won't mind. I like some of the new rules. Most of them. See my review on that. And then we talk about this. Now, this has actually changed a little bit. So this is Waagh power. So, the Waagh. Everyone knows what a Waagh is. It's where your boys just scream and then murder everything. So, originally it was like the top level thing of the Big Waaagh trait, which was pretty decent. So, at the start of the combat phase, you can say you will release the power of the Waagh. If you do so, add 1 to the attack's characteristics of melee weapons by friendly Orruk units for the rest of the phase. Yeah, only adds for the rest of the phase, so you better make this count, because this is actually changed. At the end of the phase, you lose all Waagh points you have received so far, and your army loses all Waagh powers it has gained so far. So previously, in the 2.0 book, for the Big Waaagh, you actually rolled a dice, and there was a chance you could lose it, so it became a risky gamble of, aha, do I pop this and risk losing all these Waagh powers I've gained along the way, which are basically, they're my allegiance abilities at this point. Do I risk all that, which was things like +1 damage, ignoring damage, moving faster, denying powers, all that kind of stuff. Some really good stuff in the power of in the Big Waaagh, if you could make it work with their Waagh powers. If you could generate enough points fast enough, and there were ways to certainly do that. This now is just a straight up, no, you reset to 0. So, depending on where this is now and how many points it costs now, and what the point basis for gaining Waagh powers are, this is either going to be this is in your pocket to use in maybe, in your desperate moment at the end of the game or mid-game. But the fact that you're going to reset, I can already see now, this is going to cause some very interesting tactical decisions, and waghing and not waghing is probably going to cost you some games when you first begin, until you figure out when's the right time. But it's adding 1 to the attacks of characteristics of all friendly Orruk units for the rest of the phase. It would be nice if it was for the rest of the round, because then you'd have 2 chances to swing, and whiffing wouldn't really, be too bad when you get those dice rolls. But, add 1 to the attacks characteristics. So your Ardboys, 3 attacks, a lot of your Brutes, 3-4 attacks, Gore Grunters, lots of attacks, Kruleboyz, I'm curious about the Kruleboyz. So, 5 attacks on a Killer Boss, 3 attacks on a Gut Rippers. You know what? If you buff the Gut Rippers with that, and you put them with just a bit of elixirs from our Swamp Caller Shaman, you could pump out a lot of mortal wounds. That might be enough if you've still got Gut Rippers by the time you reach this. So, there's that. It says Orruk units. Sadly, Hobgrots are not Orruks, so who cares? The Man Skewers, they don't care about it. They go up to 3 attacks, 4s and 4s, 1 damage with their Jagged Blades, but no one particularly cares about that. The Killer Boss on Great Gnashtooth, and this will probably be like anything that adds to attacks, anything that increases the killiness of Killer Bosses, and you do have and just bosses in general and big characters on mounts. This doesn't specify that it doesn't affect mounts, so 10 attacks on a Great Gnashtooth. Who knows how many attacks on some of the other units that are out there for their new monsters. So there is that. I think this is I really like that. So, like always, you're not going to give up free attacks. That's a fantastic power to have. It's just the change here, the odd little nerf, that now you do lose it, which I like better from a gameplay design point of view. I like it better from a design point of view. And I like it better from a narrative point of view and the feel and flow of a battle. I don't like it because it's technically weaker. But I can't really stand firm on that statement with the fact that, I haven't seen the rest of this book, and it probably, they might not even need it, So, hey, I like this power more than I dislike it. So, there's that, and then of course your usual plug to, hey guys, buy Kragnos. We made this stupid expensive model that kind of is terrible except for being a beat stick. Buy it now. Buy 5 of them. Buy Kragnos. No thanks. I'm good. You can keep your ridiculous dumb god monster. I'm anti god monster in this game. I don't like using them. Alariel, typically, I find they all have really exploitable weaknesses, and they're just kind of not fun to use unless your opponent's also using a god. I find it's kind of like the equivalent of using knights and titans. It's like, come on. If I'm using a knight, your opponent at least needs to be using something that's Titanic equivalent. Otherwise, it's just a dumb game. So, there's that. So, you know. And that concludes what they've shown off on here. So that is really just it. Some interesting little snippets. They're just drip feeding us. So there is that. I wonder if they're going to be able to pump out, you know, new Battletomes faster and better than what they would normally produce for 40k, which is 9th edition got off to a really rocky start. Not going to be talking about 9th edition in this video. No rants today. So that is it. Let me know what you think about some of these rules and what you think about just the Kruleboyz in general and Orruk Warclans in general. If you're a Warclans player like myself, what you are excited for. The only Warclans I've ever really used have been other people's. I have my own Kruleboyz now. I was waiting to find the perfect destruction army for myself, and yeah, Kruleboyz sold me. So, once again, I've been Jay from Jade Productions, and I will see you next time.